Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Okay, morning, Brian. Thanks for having me on the podcast here today. So currently, I'm VP of Sales for North America for Starleaf, and obviously you can hear that I'm an English guy who lives. I live out in this. I'm in Jersey City at the present moment. I just got this thing. I love America, so I love living here. So I do that at the present moment. I started off years back as a engineer. So I did the college degree and all that sort of stuff. Did engineering. Last engineering job I had was with Motorola in Chicago. And that's where I got my first taste for the US. And I was lucky, I was back there in the time, 89, 90, in the Pippin and Jordan era. So I managed to see some of that action in Chicago. It was really, that was just unbelievable, real memorable time. Did that for a couple of years. Then it's funny, at Motorola, you'd see all the nice cars parked in all the spots right by the door.
We don't hide it well, do we?
And they're always closest to the door. You just walked like 500 yards across the car park and you get to the front of a nice car. And I'm like, I want one of those cars there. Who are these guys? And you realize they're the sales guys. So when my contract ended in Motorola, I went back to England and I was like, I'm done with engineering. I loved engineering, but I'm done with engineering. And now I just want to go and do some sales. And I found if I did technical sales with my engineering background, it was really quite compelling because if the prospect wants to sit and go through the processor architecture, hey, I'm with you all day long. You got the time and a whiteboard. I'm gonna work you on that. Yep. So I did that. It was funny because I was good as an engineer. Then you go back in at ground zero as a sales guy, and that was tough. And I'll tell you some stories about that once we get into it a little bit. And then I worked for some. I did really well, and I started working for a lot more companies. Then I decided I want to do my own thing. I did that for probably 7-8 years. Learned a lot from that. Learned that there's some things I'm really good at and some things I'm really not very good at. So what I do now is I work on the things I'm good at and let other people do the bits I'm really bad at. Yeah. And then I took a bit of a risk, really. I came to Starleaf when they were 4 years into being a dev company, hadn't really gone to market, and I was the first guy they hired in the UK. And I literally set the business up for them in the UK. And it was funny because I just leased a car like 2 months before I joined them, and I had 12,000 miles on it. I was allowed to do 12,000 miles a year. I did 40,000 miles in that first year. Wow. I was literally, but we had a cool product that was very demonstrable. You had to get it in front of the customer. You had to get their hands on it. Otherwise, you end up in that feature parity world of hell because you lose a deal because someone's got someone on the fifth sheet they're never going to use. That sort of stuff. Yeah. But I took a chance doing that. I did that for 4.5 years, built that up, got that into a really strong position, and then just kind of I get a little bit bored once it gets too spreadsheety and too MQLs, PQLs, and all that sort of stuff.
We love them.
Oh no, and so they asked me if I'd come out to the US. So I came over here, ran the East Coast sales teams here. And I think it's funny. I think an Englishman, especially around here in New York and stuff, it's very you get noticed. You can sit in a meeting and when you open your mouth, people notice you. And if you use that correctly, it can be very compelling and can really help you. And then 6 months into that, we had a complete reorg here. Now I run the whole of North America for Starleaf. And I've lived out here for 2.5 years now. And I love it here. I'm never going to go home. Well, this is home now. UK's not home for me anymore.
Really? That's nice.
Yeah, it is. I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to stay in New Jersey for the rest of my life because I could live somewhere that's a little bit warmer than here.
Yeah, New Jersey's kind of cold.
In the winter, it's brutal, absolutely brutal.
So you've had to make some pretty adventurous changes going from engineering to sales and then going from the UK to the US.
Yeah, I think, the engineering to sales, I think was a good transition. And as I said, if you're selling a product that's quite technical, you're sitting in a room with, you always get in a room and you're sitting with a prospect and there's always someone's going to test you. They're going to test how smart you are and whether you're just, whether I was selling sweets for Mars last week or Cadbury's last week, and now I'm selling a highly technical product where they're risking their jobs and stuff on what they do, the decisions they make. So they need to make sure that they trust the person on the other side of the table. Yep. So getting stuck in some technical stuff, and there's always someone to test me. I'd sit there and I'll have a commercial person, a finance director, then I have a engineering person or an IT person, and they chuck out a little question to that. And when you've answered a few of them, then they kind of let you see them relax and they kind of start to feel a little bit better about the whole thing. So that's always worked very well for me. It always has.
But a lot of people who make that transition, because when you're an engineer, you're highly valued. It's a knowledge-based profession. Then you go to sales, which is performance-based. People don't value. Who needs them until we need them, right?
It's a funny thing, right? So when I had my interview for my first job, first sales job, right? They basically said to me, "You never really done any sales." And I was like, "Well, actually, you're wrong, because as an engineer, I'm selling ideas and I'm selling plans and I'm selling, this is the way we want to go all the time."
Yeah.
So there is a sales element there, but do you know what? I like the money. I like the game. I like the game. I like winning. I like the game. To me, it's like an intense chess match. You know,
Yep.
you're playing this game, and sometimes you're playing multiple games because there's multiple people involved. You have a
Right.
key contact. What's going to make it a win for him when he goes to talk to the people above him and all that? So you've got to be really, you can't.
Strategy.
Yeah, it's a big time. You have to look at different levels and try and understand. And sometimes you have to switch. You could be sitting on one piece of strategy and you have to just test something around the back door. That can bite you in the butt. But sometimes you just got to be. Sometimes I think you got to be a bit maverick about it. You know, ask that question that people don't want to be asked. You know,
Yep.
when you're sitting in a room and everybody, and it's on the tip of everybody's tongue. I'm the guy that'll ask that question. You
That's
know,
good, because it needs to
that's
be asked, because that's the real why behind the why.
no, I completely agree. And if you walk out of the room and everybody's going, "Why, we don't really understand that bit," well, you missed the opportunity. You should have asked a question. And however bad it is in the room, I mean, to me, I'm in the room because you've got a pain, right? No pain, no gain. Okay.
Right.
People don't do
It's
anything
not
unless something.
entertainment. Yeah.
No, it's not. And you know what? I've already qualified. I'm not looking for friends here. I'm not. I've got plenty of
Right.
friends. This is about business, and I'm going to qualify you in. And I know you've got a pain. That I've got some way of helping you with that. And if I can stick my pen in your pain a little bit, and you're honest with me and tell me what's really, really going on, then we can have an honest conversation about it. You know, and that's the thing for me.
And maybe this is too personal for me, but what do you see as the big difference between selling in the UK versus selling in the US?
Is it more of a dance in the UK a little bit? I know there's
Yeah.
that getting to know you a little bit more sort of stuff. I like it here. You know, I go see someone in New York. We're here to do some business, you know,
Well,
and
New
maybe
York is different. New York's almost a different country too, right?
no, it
It's
really,
very
really is.
direct, very fast.
I always sold in London, and you know, a lot of the big customers I was working with were the banks, and they were quite, you know, they need to get stuff done. They
Right.
want to be leading edge, so they really want to be leading edge and thing. So I guess it depends what sort of market you're in. You know,
Yeah.
if you're doing I've never done public sector sales because I'd kill
It's
myself
too
doing that.
hard. Yeah.
You know, it's
It's
just too
slow.
slow. It'd drive me mad. It really would. Playing a game of chess for 5 years, and sometimes in those deals, and we have public sector guys at our place, they might have a great relationship with someone for 2 years, and in the third year, that person moves off, and you completely reset. And then the person coming in has got relationships with other people, and you can't control that sales. You
Yeah.
can't. You know, it's a tough call. So I think, is there much there? I think sales is sales, really. I think there's just different relationships and there's different cultural things that make a bit of a change with it.
And why go into leadership? Why didn't you stay a rep?
See, that's interesting because I always, it really is interesting because it's funny because when I recruit people, or I always think the best enterprise salespeople are the most selfish people in the world. They completely are, because they have to be. They have to be single-minded.
Laser
Looking at that,
focused. Yeah.
it's so easy to get involved in this and that and all this other stuff, right? You have to be late. You're hunting elephants, right?
Right.
Let's go out. I've got this big elephant gun and I've got one
Right.
bullet. I
You
need to
only
go and
one bullet.
find that bullet. I got into, I think what happens when I was the first sales guy at starting, I was running around doing stuff. Then I started recruiting people. Then you kind of get this. There wasn't a sudden moment. I'm a very much I'm a player manager. Okay, so I'm always involved. I'm not one of those pesky sales managers who wants to come on all your meetings because I haven't been out on the road for a while and drives the sales guy mad.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's a test. I think it just came as a thing to me. I hire more people, then I'm more, then I really, I don't want to tell them how to do stuff. I want to help them do stuff because everybody's got different styles. Everybody's got different ways. Everybody's got different clothes they like or a
Right.
methodology for doing stuff. My job's just to look at the bigger picture with it and just have an overview. And I just get a buzz out of that now. I get a buzz when one of my sales guys comes back and closes the deal. That gives me a buzz now.
It does.
And I still travel around and stuff. I still enjoy being in the room when it's necessary. But I think it kind of just happened to me. And it's just, and then I'm very into learning. So I do a lot of learning. I read a lot of books, I like to do a lot of courses, and I like to be intelligent about the way I sell and manage. So I've done a whole bunch of that. And do you know what, some of the lessons you get from when you were selling yourself? You know, your thing, I watch your thing about outward mindset, right? That to me is really interesting, because I used to go back years. I'd worked for a company and we did this whiteboard selling. And I'm a freak with whiteboards. A whiteboard, a flip chart. If it's in the room, I'm going to draw on it. I'm going to draw a picture. And I used to go out and sit with a client, and we'd be sitting there, we'd be talking about his pain and this. And I'd say, well, why don't we just draw that on the board? Let's just draw it on the board. And there's a couple of real subtle things that happen there. So I'm drawing on the board. Now I'm not sitting opposite him, I'm sitting with him, and we're best buddies, and we're talking about our solution and how we're going to get it all done.
Partners in crime.
That's it. And at the end of the call, he's taking pictures because he wants to remember what it's about. And that's that outward mindset piece, because now I've just sat in his shoes and I've become his, consultative partner in this. And the other thing that was good about it was you never missed anything. So he would, that's not right there. So when you did your proposal, it was, you never had to go back and correct it. But I do the same for my salespeople here. If anybody ever comes to me, I've got whiteboards everywhere. Come in, if you've got a problem or you're looking at a deal, let's whiteboard it. Let's visually look at it. And then it's much more, and then I'm standing with whoever I'm doing this with, and we're working the solution together. And it's a great learning way.
Well, that's it, because a lot of people don't want to write things down. And when you say chess, can you visualize the 8x8 board and play chess in your mind? I can't. I've been playing since I was 6 years old. Tic-tac-toe is a challenge.
No, I hear. Oh, don't even go near the Rubik's Cube thing.
well, that's it. When you start writing things down, then it's not just ideas and thoughts. It's then you hand them the pen. That's when the magic happens. And they start writing how they want it to work or how it's not working right now.
And that's what kind of happens with the whiteboard piece, doesn't it? Because
exactly.
We're owning this thing. Now we're working on a solution together. I'm not a sales rep.
Collaboration.
Your persona's gone. You're not the client. I'm not the rep anymore. We're a couple of guys sitting here and we're working on this solution that's going to get rid of this pain for you. And I don't think we do enough. And I do training with a company. So I'll go back to the UK, do this training. I will get the pens and stand them up on the table. We've got this 8-foot, 12-foot whiteboard here. I put the mark and I've got them there. Once only has ever someone actually picked the pens up when I'm assessing them and drawn a picture, because they needed to work out me as the customer as a visual person, not a verbal person. Don't show me a PowerPoint with a deck with 1 million builds on. I'm just like switched off. Draw me a picture that I can own and be a part of. That really works for me. Always has.
That participation. And I think what you talked about, we're not a rep and a client, because that's what you want, is not be a rep and a client. You want to be two people collaborating together.
Yeah. That's and I think the whiteboard does that for me. Right from the start, I always did it. It triggered something with me, and I've always done it. And if I'm selling to management here or doing stuff like that, I'm drawing pictures. And people own it, and then people get up and start drawing on it as well. And then all of a sudden there's 4 or 5 of us in the room and I got the decision I wanted because we owned what we drew, so that's a big thing. So I pass it on to people. I say to all my team, draw the pictures. I mean, I have an iPad and I'm always taking notes on iPad, drawing pictures, throwing ideas down, and then they all stitch together. If my CSO says to me, Mike, 7 weeks ago, you gave me a forecast for X, Y, and Z. I can just go back to that note and say, here it is. I wrote the notes and here's the spreadsheet and this is how I got those numbers 7 weeks ago. You wouldn't normally remember that stuff. So that's why I like doing that.
Yeah, because it is a story, right? It is beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. The more ends you can get, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, big time.
And what have you learned about salespeople in this process, as far as what separates the really top handful from the rest?
I tell you, there's a couple of things there for me. One of the big things for me is, I think if you're a young sales rep and you get in the right place with the right mentor, the right sales director, that to me is a massive thing. When I first started my first sales job, I worked at GC Plessy. They're a phone system. We were selling phone systems in London, the East Postals. And I had a sales director there called Peter Keeble. I think he's still with Siemens. And this guy was brutal. He was brutal. There was 2 things. If you ever sat in a sales meeting with him and said, I'm just waiting for the customer to come back and confirm the date, he would kill you. He was like, you have to be always pushing the sale. It's always your job to be moving it forward. If you're waiting for them to do something, you're going to make a mistake. The other thing was preparation. So we used to, like on a Thursday, we'd have call out every other Thursday, call out days, bottle of champagne, who can get the appointments. So he taught me on a Tuesday, I'd go out to my patch, dress up smart, go to all the receptions, walk around the trading estate, Now, the receptionist was usually the person who answered all the phones and did that.
Yeah.
They're sitting out there all day. They've got no one to talk to. You walk in, get a comp slip and say, listen, I'm Mike from GPT. Are you having any issues with the phone system? Oh, did they tell you? And then you'd write them all down. You'd go back, qualify them in or out, can I help? And I'd sit there on a Thursday and I'd phone up. I'd say, hey, Jill from your reception said you're having trouble with this. We can help you with that. When can I come and see you? Bang, appointment. It was that. It felt easy to me. And the guy sitting next to me is going, he's got his Dun and Bradstreet thing, and he's going, hey, I'm Paul from GPT. I'm the new sales rep in the area, and I'm in your neck of the woods last week. Can I? Oh, you're like, and I'm sitting, I'm puking up, and they're doing it, and it's their call. So I think learning that, and one of my biggest bugbears is busy fools. Busy fools. People who, you know, I see you talking about it as well. It's not about metrics, this game. I had a sales director once. I remember him phoning me. Michael, his name was. He says, Mike, you've got 2 appointments in your diary for next week. Do I need to find some stuff for you? I'm like, well, how many appointments do you think I need next week? And he's like, well, more than you've got. And I'd be like, do we sell appointments? And he'd be like, no. I said, as soon as we sell appointments, I'll get you more appointments. But I would rather work on 2 very highly qualified opportunities next week that I know is going to get me to my quota. And do you care? Do you care that I didn't do 10 appointments or 100 calls a day? Who cares? No one cares. It's about quality.
It is, especially, bigger deals, because it requires that strategy. You're not going to think moves ahead.
Yeah. I did a deal years back, probably one of the biggest deals we did in this company with Credit Suisse. And it was a deal that it was 18 months. I was laying the chess pieces out for nearly 18 months before we got into a movable position and do stuff. Now, you have to have patience. So good management will give you, if you've got enterprise sales guys, you've got to be patient. It can be feast and famine for them. Okay. Yeah. You've got to support them when it's famine and enjoy it with them in the feast, but you have to trust them to get to the feast. And you can see pretty easily whether they're doing that, whether they've got the right discipline. You can see that. You can just tell by the guy. And I've never ever gone through people's diaries, looked at what they're doing. Let's hire good people and trust them to know what they're doing. If your hiring process is good, you don't have to distrust them. That's just a thing.
And because you certainly have the high energy, the high intellect. How do you qualify other salespeople? How do you develop that trust?
You mean in terms of employing them and stuff?
Yeah, because the problem is either people focus on the calendar or the diary, or you focus on the ability of the rep.
Yeah, I think it's the ability of the rep. I really do. And as I say, busy fools. I had a guy working for me not so long ago who would put his restaurant breaks in his diary. I'm like, really? He'd put walking the dog.
Meeting?
He'd have breakfast. Walking the dog, clearing my calendar, stuff like that. I'm like, we don't work together anymore because it just drives me mad. I don't care about all that stuff. I'd rather you work 2-3 hours, strong days, close your business, than spend lots of time doing absolute rubbish.
And so you had those mentors early in your career?
I think the guy early in my career, that Peter Keeble guy, he was very much like that. Let's be focused on delivering the number because that's what you got to get to.
He cares about. Yeah.
So he cares about. But I also learned there as well that, and it's like when you see people in we're going to see the Olympics in the summer. Some people race to the line, some people race beyond the line, and the top sales guys don't look at 100% because most of the people look at 100% don't actually get there. They get to 92, they get to 93 because they pulled back before the line. Yeah. So you look at the guys who are looking at the 150s because they're the guys who are going to overachieve. I think it's a small time you interview people, you can see pretty quick with the disciplined people and also people who know how to manage up properly. Okay. Understand what I need to know and make sure you're delivering that to me without me having to chase you for it. I want to know if you had a meeting yesterday with a customer, give me a one-line and tell me it went well, it didn't go well, we've got some more work to do. Just give me a brief thing because my management are asking me, I've got this big deal sitting around, what's happening? I walk into a meeting, I don't know what's happening. I'm not doing my job, am I?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. When you qualify a deal, when you're talking to a rep about a deal, what are the questions you ask?
I'm always looking for the pain point. I'm looking for the pain. Don't tell. Yeah. Why are they talking to us? And I also try and get into a rep's head that when I've ever sold, I've always thought my time is really important. Okay. And when I come and see you, I'm actually doing you a favor coming to see you because I've qualified you've got a pain. I believe I have a way of helping you fix that pain. And I believe you're the right person to talk to about that. And so it's a mutual experience. It's like when you interview, you get interviewed, you go and interview. I've been to interviews and really put people off because I'm interviewing them. Why should I come and work for you and stuff? And they're like, whoa, but it's not on my list of questions. They got this list of questions they got to go through. I think the qualification, and I think sometimes we overtrain in that. So we do training about all these qualification questions, and it drives me mad because the first couple of questions, you need to understand what the level of knowledge the person's got so you know where to get to. I mean, what's wrong with that walking into someone and saying, listen, why are we here? What's your pain? What a great question to start a conversation with, rather than all the flannel and stuff that goes around it. So I'll talk to them about pain. It really is, to me, no pain, no gain. If there's there has to be a compelling reason why someone's talking to you and what they're trying to do. There has to be a pain for them. There has to be an outcome for them, good or bad, if they don't fix it, or if the CEO's shouting and they need to get something fixed. So we have to find those. And you can't take a PQ or MQ, I can't remember which one's a which, and just look, there are these graphs and colors and stuff like that. Just give me a lead. When I phone a customer and they say, hey Mike, I was expecting your call, that's the lead. Because we've qualified it. I know it's not that easy, but that's the qualification. So what's the pain? Why are we talking to this person? Why are we giving them our time? That's important to me. Really, really important. And that's what I grill the reps on. Okay, you're going to fly to California to talk to someone and it's going to cost us X, Y, and Z. Why are we even going before we start? Okay, I don't mind you going to California if it's qualified properly. What's their pain? Who are you dealing with? Let's have the hierarchy. I get really uppity about people who are just dealing with the IT manager or something like that, because it has to be a bigger picture. And if you're locked into one, what's the decision-making process? What's the time scale? All that usual sort of stuff. But sometimes, with the big stuff, you just got to let a rep go, and he's elephant hunting, isn't he? And you can't always shoot elephants. You've got to give him a chance to go and see some.
Well, yeah, they got to understand, where do elephants live? What's their migration pattern?
Yeah.
How do they eat? How do they drink?
Yeah.
Because you can get the little baby elephant interested, but to get the big elephant to move.
Well, if you shoot the little elephant with your elephant gun, it's just a big splat, isn't there? And no one gets.
It's not much fun.
We're all going to lose at that. So you've got, and also pitching to the people behind the people. So people come to me and say, look, what this mean? And I was like, okay, so who's the person you're pitching to? Because you need to get your pitch right, and you have to help them. And that's that outward mindset again. All of a sudden, there's no personas there. I am the sales guy, but the client, we're going to sell that to his boss ourselves. You have to position yourself like that. You have to. And if you're not, you're in a bad place.
Yeah. And have you managed managers?
I have managed managers. I've managed quite a few managers where they have teams underneath them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be a bit frustrating. I'll be honest. It can be a little bit frustrating because my way of doing stuff is not their way of doing stuff. I have to let them do their thing. But they have to manage up properly. They have to understand what I'm looking for. Like, we're very much we sell through partners and stuff like that. So, if I'm taking a forecast that's being delivered by a partner, not my rep, you're going to fail. You're going to miss your targets every day, and you're going to fail. And it's a weak way of doing stuff, which I don't like. So I need to make sure that my managers understand that the facts you're giving me are the facts, not because some sales rep at a partner told you what you thought they thought you wanted to hear. Yeah. That's a disaster. You're always going to fail that. I've never met anybody who's survived like that. They always miss their target. Very rarely do they get through. So managing managers is different, and and they've always got their own style and stuff like that. But they have to understand what I'm looking for. I'm very much like, we use Salesforce, okay, and I want Salesforce to be absolutely accurate. I don't want any buff in there or cotton wool, as I call it. I don't want any crap in there, because what people have to understand is when we look at Salesforce, and someone in the business is going, your quota this quarter and you've only got 2x rather than 3x, right?
I've never heard that before.
Oh God, help me stuff. But unless your Salesforce is honest, how to marketing, lead gen know to point the machine at me if my boss comes to me and says you're looking a bit light in the quarter, I'm like, yeah, so what are the other people doing to help that? Not me. We're salespeople. We're going to go out and do some selling. We'll do a bit of prospecting, but you need to turn the marketing machine in the company towards my direction. To me, managing is always, especially, you've got reps and stuff, it's about managing the department, just making sure everybody's topped up. Someone has a really good quarter, closes a bunch of deals. Now I need to turn the machine and help them get the next bunch of business up there. So yeah, it can be fun. And a lot of the time, sales managers are quite, they're quite bullish in their own way, and they've got their own thing, and but you just got to manage that. You just got to be, sometimes it's a real light touch, sometimes it's a heavier touch. So
yeah. And how do you manage, because typically, a handful of reps crush it. A lot of people come in close to it, and then there's people who fail. Who do you spend your time with?
Now and that's a great question, isn't it? Because it has to be a mix and match.
Yeah.
I think my top reps, if you've got a rep who's crashing a number, does he need my help very much? No, he's going to come to me when he has a bit of an off-piece deal, and he needs a little bit of creativity in the account and stuff like that. I'm going to work my way. I think I'm going to try and work with everybody and give them a chance. With the middle ones, I want them to aspire to work with, to be top. The bottom ones, I think you have to triage them really quick. You've got to work out whether they're right or wrong. Okay. And sometimes it's not the rep. I've seen reps come from really successful at one company. It's the product, the service, the style. And some people make a jump and it just doesn't suit them. It does. Yeah. Some people like to sell tin boxes. Some people can sell services, and sometimes they can't do either. But you have to, and I think a lot of the times when we've exited people, it's not a harsh exit. It's, look, this isn't the right place for you. It's not the right place for us. We're going to struggle, and in 6 months' time, we're all going to hate each other. You're going to have had a horrible time. You won't have earned any money. So why don't we just part now and move on? I'll give you a great reference and do all that sort of stuff. So you don't have to keep firing people. You have to guide them. The industry's too small. So people pop around and people pop back up, and they end up at a company. You need a favor sometime. You need to pick up a phone and call them. You have to be mindful of that, I think. But the best reps, when I was at GPT, I was top rep there. I really was a top rep there. And the sales manager, one sales manager I had would have, like, on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, have a sales meeting in London, because we used to be based in London. And all he was trying to do is he's trying to get you out of the pub from lunchtime, right? Because that's all he's trying to do. And I make sure you're not pissed in the afternoon. So, and I never used to go, and he'd pull me up and say, I said, look, surely that means for the guys who are under target and need help. I'm over target. I don't need help. I'm good, thanks. If you think I'm doing something, there's something I can do better, let me know, because you keep jacking up my quota. And I keep hitting the numbers. But on a Friday afternoon, if I'm in the pub having a few beers, so what? If I'm behind the target, I'm smart enough not to be in the pub and get seen to be doing that, because I should be on my patch doing my work. So that's kind of the way it is, isn't it?
It is. And when you're hiring reps, what's a red flag that you've kind of learned over time that even if they've had past success, that you're going to pass on them?
I will never hire anybody unless I can reference them. And LinkedIn is beautiful for that. There's always someone, and you have to do it. You have to do it off the record, because, and especially in America, people are a bit paranoid about sounding. I will never hire anybody unless I've referenced them. Ever, ever, ever. It's a golden rule. The ones that hurt me are the ones that I didn't reference properly. It's as simple as that. And if you look for your network, you'll always find someone who knows it. Because especially during COVID, LinkedIn's become the window to business. It really is. And I go on LinkedIn every day, and we're prospecting through LinkedIn, but you keep all those contacts together through that. So I will always reference people. If I can't reference them, they're not coming in. Simple as that.
And what type of references, even though there's been performance, that's validated, but they say, check with someone else, or, great rep, but not good internally.
Yeah, and see that, and that's bothersome, especially when you're a small team. You don't need prima donnas in there. Yeah. But then, as I said earlier, remember, my best enterprise sales reps, the elephant hunters, are so focused.
They tend to be prima donnas.
Yeah, they do. But they really do, and that's the way you want them. You want them hunting elephants. It's easy to get distracted with gazelles and start shooting those, but I want them on elephants. That's a big thing. So I think it has to be a positive. I have to get a positive. And I think the people I take references from are people I've probably known in the industry for a long time, and I completely trust their trusting. Sometimes I've hired people that someone, they've had a company, they're doing a downsize, and then one of my LinkedIn contacts has said, this is a really good guy, you should talk to him. And I've hired people on that basis, and I've created jobs for them. So I think that's where you have to be very careful burning bridges these days. I think if you burn bridges in this business, you're in deep trouble.
Yeah, I think those days are over, because you do have LinkedIn, and you somehow, some way can find a connection one level removed.
You always can as well, can't you? There's always a
Yeah.
connection somewhere. So I always check that. I think I can tell within the first less than 10 minutes whether that's the right person for me. And I've stopped, and I won't interview someone for an hour if I think they're wrong in the first 10 minutes. I will just be clear with them and say, look, I don't think you really fit. You know, we've got a culture, we've got a thing that we do here. I really don't. And I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. Best thing to do is move on. And so many people are grateful for that. And also, when you've exited people out of companies, some people are grateful because they were in a bad place. They go somewhere else. All of a sudden, they're selling really strong. They're making loads of money. Everybody's happy. And they're like, wow, I wished I got out of there early because it was just the wrong thing for me.
Right. And there's bad blood gets you nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes a pain for me. You start missing your quotas and stuff. It's everything rolls up to me, right? Everything rolls into mine. So, and I have to get 100% of all the people over the line to hit my number, right? That's the way it is.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
They can connect up with me on LinkedIn. I didn't realize, did we do half hour already?
Yeah.
Wow, I do gas on, don't I?
Great stuff, though.
You can get me on LinkedIn. I'm mike.mccarthy@starleaf.com. And I just keep listening to your podcast. You make me laugh sometimes when you wake up in the morning and I see you, especially when you're doing the multiple persona things, the finance director says, and it's so real though, because that's what's happening. That's really what's happening.
Well, I don't make it up.
No, you really don't. Anyway, listen, Brian, it was really good to meet you as well.